January 5. San Francisco was unusually cold, the bay waters sharp with winter wind. A thick fog clung to the Golden Gate Bridge, as if refusing to lift. That morning, Dr. Lena Morrow, a 35-year-old forensic psychologist from Los Angeles, was granted private after-hours access to Alcatraz Island. She wasn't a tourist. She was investigating a sealed archive recently discovered beneath the prison chapel, a sub-basement, not on any blueprints. The discovery made headlines in December 2024. Hidden room found beneath Alcatraz. Was it a secret cell? But after 2 park rangers vanished while examining it, the room was locked again. Officials blamed unstable ground. No further comment. Lena had clearance through the National Historical Registry due to her connections with the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit. A lone park warden named Tomas Rivera ferried her across the bay at dusk. He barely spoke. When she asked if he'd ever been inside the newly uncovered basement, he muttered, "I don't go near it after dark." She laughed, assuming he was joking. He wasn't. As the fog thickened, the ferry docked, and Lena climbed the familiar stone steps toward the prison's main cell block, abandoned since 1963, but preserved like a frozen time capsule. Inside, the silence was crushing. The air was still. A narrow stairwell near the chapel had been unsealed just weeks ago. Behind the iron gate, stone steps led down into total blackness. She descended with a flashlight and her audio recorder. 20-7 steps down, she found it. The secret room. Stone walls, chains still bolted to them, and in the center, an iron chair with leather restraints. A strange humming vibrated through the room, faint, like it came from beneath the floor. As she looked around, her flashlight flickered. Her recorder emitted static, then clear as a bell, a whisper broke through. "You came back." Lena froze. Then the lights cut out completely, and someone or something sprinted across the room. Lena's heart, the sound of sprinting footsteps echoed in the black. She swept her flashlight back on, but the bulb flickered violently, then steadied dim. Dust swirled in front of her, like something had just moved. The room was empty, but the heavy iron chair in the center was now facing her. She hadn't touched it. She backed toward the doorway, trying to stay calm, but when she turned to leave, her blood froze. The stairwell was gone. Where the stairs had been was now a solid stone wall, seamless, like no opening had ever existed. No, she whispered, tapping the surface with shaking hands. It was real cold. She turned, shining the flashlight across the room again. That's when she noticed something carved into the wall beside the iron chair. Words, jagged and shallow, scratched by hand. "They don't die. They move between walls." Her audio recorder, still running, crackled and hissed. And then, "Dr. Morrow, do you remember us?" She hadn't said her name aloud. Lena spun. Behind the chair stood a figure, translucent face stretched unnaturally long, its mouth wide and silent, screaming, eyes like burnt marbles. She ran, but no matter which way she turned, the walls kept changing. The room grew larger, then smaller, then stretched long, like a hallway that hadn't been there seconds before. A voice whispered from behind the walls, over and over, "Back again, back again, back again." Suddenly a loud slam. The iron chair scraped across the floor, hurled sideways by unseen force. A metal pipe above her burst, spraying scalding steam. She covered her eyes and, the moment she opened them again, the stairwell was back. Lena didn't hesitate. She sprinted up, emerging into the chapel, gasping for breath. Park Warden Tomas Rivera stood near the altar, pale as death. He had clearly heard her screams. "I told you not to go in there after dark," he said. "They were down there," Lena shouted. "Someone was there. They said my name." Tomas looked at her grimly. "That room wasn't built by the prison." "What?" "It predates Alcatraz." "It's Alcatraz." Lena sat blanket inside the island's staff quarters, still trembling. Tomas poured her hot coffee, but didn't speak until the silence hung like a rope. "You ever wonder why they called it the Rock before it was a prison?" he asked. "Before the lighthouse. Before the Civil War." Lena stared at him, confused. "In 1853, Tomas continued, there was a military outpost here, long before the federal prison. They started construction for an underground powder magazine, but they never finished." He slid a folded document from his desk drawer and handed it to her. A photocopy of an old manifest, yellowed edges, burnt dot at the top. "Fort Alcatraz Construction Report, October 1853. Subject: containment failure." The bottom half had a hastily scrawled paragraph. "Chambers opened beneath the stone, not man-made, for workers lost. Screams heard inside rock. No further excavation. Permitted by order of Major Hastings. Site sealed. Prayers conducted. Location blacked from official plans." Lena's mouth went dry. "They found that below the chapel," Tomas whispered. "Under the floor. Same spot you went." "So the room wasn't added during the prison era," Lena muttered. "It was uncovered, resealed." Tomas nodded. "Every few decades, someone opens it again. Someone always disappears." Lena turned to the window, looking out at the dark silhouette of San Francisco across the bay. "I heard voices. One of them knew me." "That's the worst part," Tomas said. "They remember." Lena frowned. Tomas hesitated, then reached into a drawer and pulled out an old black and white photograph. He laid it on the table. It showed a group of military men from the 1860s in uniform. 10 of them. Lena leaned in, then her blood ran cold. One of the men in the center was identical to the figure she'd seen below. Same long face, same dead eyes. "That one," Tomas said, pointing at the man. "That's Lieutenant Jonah Bell. Official records say he went missing in 1854, disappeared into the sealed tunnel. His body was never recovered." Lena sat back, heart racing. What if it wasn't just a ghost? What if something took him? Suddenly, the lights flickered in the staff quarters. From the hallway, a loud clang. Tomas stood quickly, hand on his flashlight. "Stay here." But as he opened the door, he stopped dead. Etched into the wooden floorboards of the hallway was a fresh message. "You can't seal what lives. Can't seal what lives." The hallway rust. The wooden floorboards where the message had been carved were damp, not wet, but sweating. As if the wood itself was afraid, Tomas and Lena stood in stunned silence. The only sound, the faint creaking of the wind through the ancient walls of Alcatraz. "No one's been down here all night," Tomas muttered, kneeling to inspect the carving. "I did rounds myself. Every door was locked." "Then whatever wrote this didn't use a door," Lena whispered. A low rumble so deep it was almost inaudible vibrated through the floor. Tomas froze. That came from under the chapel. Lena didn't hesitate this time. She grabbed a gear and ran. She had questions. She needed proof. And now, she felt something stronger than fear. A pull, like the island was whispering directly to her, back inside the chapel. She paused. It was freezing. Frost coated the edges of the windows, even though it was July. She turned on her recorder, hit the flashlight, and stepped onto the stone floor, where the stairwell had appeared. For a moment, nothing. Then the stone cracked. A perfect circle split open at her feet, with a thunderous groan, revealing stairs spiraling downward, slick with moisture. This time, there was no hesitation in their invitation. Lena descended. The deeper she went, the colder it got. And then, it opened again. The underground room. But now, it was different. The walls were covered in crude etchings, symbols, circles, crossed eyes, and dozens of hash marks, countless ones tallying. What? Years. Victims. The iron chair sat at the center, and it wasn't empty anymore. A man sat slumped in it, wearing a torn 1940s prison uniform. Chains rusted around his ankles. "Sir," Lena called out. No response. She took a cautious step forward. Then, Another. Her flashlight illuminated his face and she screamed. It was not a man. The eyes were sunk into black holes, but they moved. The skin was dried, stretched too tightly, cracked like scorched earth. A smile too wide for its skull was carved from ear to ear, teeth glistening. It opened its mouth, and in Lena's voice, it said, "You found me, Lena." She backed up. Fast, but behind her now stood another figure, and another. They circled her, rising from the stone itself. Their features shimmered like heat waves, impossible to focus on. One whispered, "You opened the seal." Another hissed, "You walk where we fed." And the one in the chair still smiling grated, "Now it opens for good." Suddenly, the walls split. From every direction, long black arms began reaching out, boneless, stretching impossibly wide, dragging themselves through cracks that hadn't existed seconds ago. Lena turned and ran. She didn't look back. She climbed the spiral stairway 2 steps at a time. The temperature dropped so fast, her breath froze in the air. Screams followed her up, whispering in her ears like they belonged inside her head. When she reached the chapel again, the stone sealed behind her with a deafening slam. Tomas was waiting, pale, sweating. "What did you do?" "I didn't open anything," she gasped. "It opened on its own." Tomas looked at the wooden crucifix above the chapel doors. It had split down the middle, and at the center of the crack, something was watching them. Something was watching them. They did. Tomas barricaded the chapel doors with an old pew while Lena tried to upload the footage from her camera, but the files were wrong. All of them corrupted. Images twisted. The screen stuttered and glitched with every frame that showed the underground chamber. Her own voice echoed back, distorted, repeating one sentence, "I never left. I never left. I never left." Morning didn't come. Not really. By 7 a.m. a thick fog rolled in from the Badenser than either of them had seen before. It swallowed the lighthouse, the yard, the guard tower. The sky above them was iron gray, heavy like it wanted to fall. Tomas turned on the old emergency radio. Unusual seismic activity under Alcatraz Island. No current explanation from geologists. Base of the island may be hollow. Then the signal cut out, replaced by static. They were completely cut off. Lena sat on the floor of the chapel, trying to make sense of the carvings she'd seen. She remembered the marking circles, crosses, strange eyes. Then she remembered the tallies scratched into the stone. She started drawing them, from memory. They weren't random. They were arranged in 6 rows. The top 5 rows had 12 marks each. The 6th row only had 262 sintomas. She whispered, 62 people. He looked up. What? 62 people went missing down there. Over time, the tallies, they're counting victims. Tomas stared at her, his face drained. "And you were supposed to be number 63. Before she could answer, the ground shook violently. The crucifix on the chapel wall fell, shattering. Then came the sound, a long moaning wail that rose from the earth below, the more sound that didn't seem to end, like 1,000 voices screaming backward, echoing through stone, metal, and bone. The floor cracked again, right beneath Lena. She jumped away just as a thin black arm slithered through the opening, followed by a second. A hand, made of nothing but shadow and stretched skin, pulled itself up from the split in the floor. Tomas grabbed the emergency axe from the wall. "Get back." He swung at the thing. The blade passed through it like smoke, but the creature stopped. Then, slowly, it turned its face toward Tomas. Its mouth opened impossibly wide, and it whispered his name. Tomas dropped the axe, and the hand reached into him. Lena screamed as Tomas collapsed, convulsing, eyes wide in horror, limbs twitching. She tried to drag him away, but he was sinking, like the stone floor had become quicksand. No, but he was already halfway gone, his body vanishing into the darkness below. The last thing she heard him say was, "Don't follow." Then the floor sealed, as if it had never opened. Lena backed away in stunned silence. her only companion gone. The chapel reeked of sulfur and something sweet, like rotting fruit and perfume. She didn't know how long she sat there. It could have been minutes or hours. Then her phone buzzed. One notification, a new photo. She hadn't taken it. Hands shaking, she opened the image it showed her, asleep on the chapel floor, taken from above. She looked up. Nothing was there. Nothing was there. Lena ran, stopped to pack. Didn't look back at the chapel, at the spot where Tomas had disappeared. The photo still burned in her mind, taken from overhead, but there had been no ledge, no balcony, and the angle it wasn't human. Fog clawed at her as she sprinted through the prison yard. The whole island groaned with a low subterranean vibration, like it was breathing. She reached the administration building, thinking maybe she could signal for help, but every window was bricked over, not boarded. BRICKED. That the structure hadn't been like that the day before. It looked like the stone had regrown itself, like the island was trying to erase all exits. Her thoughts spiraled. How long had she really been here? One night? Two? Was time even moving the same way anymore? Suddenly, the fog parted, and thereon, the landing dock was a boat. A small ranger skiff bobbing gently at the edge of the pier, the kind they used for island deliveries. Its engine was running. She didn't question it. She ran. The air stung her lungs with cold as she leaped onto the boat and gunned the throttle. The engine roared. Alcatraz began to fade behind her, swallowed by fog, becoming just a dark blot in the gray ocean. Only once she was halfway to the mainland did she allow herself to look back, and that's when she saw them figures, dozens of them standing on the edge of the island, just visible through the mist, all motionless, all watching, including Tomas. His eyes black, his mouth slack, his uniform soaked in something dark. He raised one hand slowly, waved, and then they vanished. Epilogue. The report that wasn't 3 days later. Lena sat in a FEMA interview room in downtown San Francisco. The agents asked her questions she couldn't answer. She told them everything. The underground room, the voices, the manifest, the thing that took Tomas. They didn't believe her. They told her the chapel had no basement, that no seismic activity had been recorded on the island, that there were no missing rangers or security personnel logged on the day in question. The manifest she had taken, gone. Her camera, fried. Files, UNRECOVERABL. Worse, the staff quarters had been abandoned for years. No one had worked there since 2011. It was supposed to be condemned. And Tomas, there was no ranger by that name in any federal record. She left the interview building, numb, stared at the bait. Then her phone buzzed. A single message from a blocked number. You left us behind. Attached was another photo. It was her, taken from behind a chain-link fence. She was standing at Pier 33, the exact place she stood now. She turned around. No one. Alcatraz is a museum now, a tourist site, but sometimes on foggy days visitors swear they hear something echoing through the abandoned prison, a voice calling names. Yours might be next. Let me know if you'd like a YouTube description or cover title for this horror story, or I can begin crafting a brand new terrifying tale for you.